Hello and welcome to the Clyde FC Podcast, brought to you by A State of Mind. My name is Paul Shanks, and with me again this week I have Nick Troy. Nick, how are you doing?
I'm alright, Paul, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad. And I have John Boyce, Mr. Positivity, and we're going to put your name to the test this week, I feel. How are you, Boycey?
Not too bad.
There's a sigh there.
It could be worse. It could have been 2-0 last night.
Well, very true, and we will cover that. A couple of games to cover. The better moods of last podcast have slipped away, sadly. We do have another guest, though, which should hopefully make things finish on a slightly more positive note. In the second part of the show today, we have Clyde's number one, David Mitchell, joining us for a quick chat and to answer your questions. But first up, as I say, we do have some matches to cover. 2 defeats, pretty uninspiring stuff, I think it's more than fair to say. We'll start with the Peterhead match. Clyde 0, Peterhead 2. Nick, do you want to take this one first?
Well, ultimately it was just disappointing. I felt like the entire game we were just flat. We struggled to ever bring the ball under control. The things that have made us successful in the past seemed to be all the things that Peterhead got right, whereas there was a lot of the game degenerated very quickly into long balls fall, stuff like that. I just thought it was an extremely disappointing performance.
Yeah, Boise, what were your overall thoughts before we start dissecting it?
Yeah, I think as a game in the whole, it wasn't pleasing to the eye, was it? I think it matched the weather.
Yeah.
Very dreary. But yeah, it's one of those ones where Peterhead, they're big, they're physical. We've struggled to match them in the past. We struggled again. I thought the midfield battle, there wasn't one. We just seemed to bypass the midfield. Peterhead play the ball up to their strikers with long balls, and very frustratingly, I feel like we try and match them for some reason, and that's not our game. So yeah, on a whole, just very disappointing. I'm hoping we can bounce back.
Yeah, I don't think there's much from an overall perspective to say other than that. It was very, very, very disappointing. As you said, Nick, flat. That was the biggest take for me. There was no real emphasis in our play at all. I think over the 90 minutes we had one shot on target, if you can even call it that. It was a fairly weak header from Goody, I think, after 8-9 minutes. Other than that, it was, I think Mitch had a couple of saves out with the goals. The conditions, as you said, Boise, were poor. Do we think that had any real reflection on the game or how it panned out?
I think it's got to have an impact on the game. I mean, you know what Broadwood's like. It's a wind tunnel when that wind gets...
and the wind obviously was the best part of 50 mile an hour gusts as well at the weekend. Yeah,
so I feel like, again, the long balls up top weren't maybe the best idea. Try to search out Goody. But yeah, I think the weather's got to play a part. Pre-match, I thought it might have been in our favour. Getting the ball down in the deck and zipping passes about. We didn't play that way, which is frustrating. I'm sure the boys know that, that's the best way to play. For me, anyway. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Nick, do you think the conditions had any factor, or is it maybe clutching for an excuse that we really shouldn't?
I think it definitely influences the game, but it's how you respond to that. And Peterhead responded positively. Peterhead do lump the ball up and stuff like that, but they also there was a lot of times my notes are very frantic and all over the place. But the one thing I always seem to be talking about is that Peterhead brought the ball down and played when they had to.
Yeah,
they played the way we normally play. And I think what the most frustrating thing is that we've got a team that every single player in our starting 11 on Saturday would walk into any team in this league arguably higher. Like, we got a fantastic squad, and we just, but for some reason, we just didn't handle the conditions on Saturday, and the play just wasn't reflective of the quality that we have.
Yeah, insipid, I would like to call it. Like, there was just nothing. There was no positives, Boise. No matter how you try and spin it, there was no positives.
First of all, are you looking up the thesauruses? Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, for me, I thought the most frustrating thing about the Peterhead game was they just seemed to want it more.
Yeah, it's a bit of a grey area, that one, in my opinion. Like, sometimes when players are underperforming, you can look to the player to their left or right and hope that they can help dig them out a hole. If it's just a short term, maybe underperformance through the 90 minutes, that's where you need your teammate to give you either a kind of kick on or just that wee assist. That didn't happen at any point on Saturday against Peterhead. There was, I mean, how do you really pick a man of the match? And that's not to be overly critical. I think it's just been realistic in the performance, and I don't think the players would argue with that. I don't think, certainly Danny was more than honest in his post-match assessment as well. He didn't lambast the players. I don't think there's any need for that at this stage. It was the second game of the season, but there was certainly more to work on than positives to take out of that game.
I think it's worth remembering as well, with both these games actually, is that we came off the back of an excellent win against Bristol and then had a week without playing football. So you could, like, there's an argument there to say that the momentum was killed immediately just by not playing again. And obviously you would like to think that after the loss on Saturday we would have had a point to prove last night, but sometimes these things just don't work out. So I'm wary of being overly critical, because as I said, we got a fantastic squad, but it was extremely poor.
Yeah. You do mention there, obviously, the postponement, and that I'm quite a big believer in momentum and the benefits that can reap throughout a footballing season. Winning breeds confidence. It's as simple as that. And that's not to say we would have won if he'd played in Barton that Saturday. It's a tricky tie. We didn't do particularly great against kind of Dumbartons and Peterheads of the world last year. But yeah, if that match had went ahead, it could have been a different scenario. Just a bit fresher off the back of, as you say, the Thistle victory. Anything else before we move on to Dumbarton? And it doesn't really get much better.
No, I think talking about the Peterhead goals, for me they were two very cheap goals to give away from a defensive standpoint. I mean, they just did far too much time in the box. The defence looked pedestrian at times. And again, I'm sure the boys know that they're frustrated in their performance, but it's maybe a wee bit concerning to see at this stage. Yeah,
and I don't think there was much protection in front of the defence as well. I think from an overall unit, it wasn't good enough as a performance to command even a point out of that match. That just wasn't there.
Nah.
It just really wasn't there. So, as you touched upon, Nick, we moved on to Dumbarton last night as we are recording this, and I think every Clyde fan were expecting some form of a reaction, a positive reaction certainly, and for the first 45 minutes it just wasn't there. It was pretty much more of the same. The kind of biggest take for me was just how little control of the ball we seemed to have. It was like a pinball machine. It just never settled. We get no rhythm at all in our play. Dumbarton weren't particularly great in my opinion, but they were far more organised. They've got a couple of big centre halves who They just get the job done. They're no-nonsense defenders. They had Nat Wedderburn, who I think controlled the game for them, doing very simple things, and that was, in my opinion, grossly missing last night. Anything you want to highlight from the Barton game, Nick?
I think first of all we need to remember the loss to Cunningham right before kick-off is obviously it's a big loss in that Cunningham is a fantastic player, but it's also a loss in that our game plan had to shift immediately. Because he brought in Josh Jack, which you wouldn't consider Josh Jack as an immediate replacement in terms of their position.
Yeah, so, Josh seems to be maybe a bit more advanced than Ross.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and then he's played Love out on the left, so there's something had to change there very quickly, which is arguably knocked us out of stride a little bit. But at the same time, it was pure passing. We lost the ball very easily. There was a lot of aimless balls forward again, and yeah, it was just even in control of the ball, it seemed to be heavy touches all the time. I don't know, it seemed very, very organised, and there was times when the Barton were just casting triangles around it.
Yeah. I think some of the messages, obviously, as we were watching the game and we were sharing it, and I think one of the comments I made was that our second touch was a tackle last night, which it's not a good starting point for.
wasn't even a winning tackle, was it?
Yeah, no, it really wasn't. The first 45, we didn't have a shot at goal. I don't think we really broke into their box at any point either. There was just nothing from an attacking front. The goal we conceded was pretty similar to, I would say, Peterhead's opener.
Yeah,
on the weekend as well. It was so very avoidable.
Yeah, I would say what we've just spoke about at the Peterhead game, just copy and paste that. And the Dumbarton game, it's disappointing again. We didn't seem to have a midfield, as you had mentioned. Nat Wedderburn just ran it. I would love to see a big ball winning midfielder for us. Something we need, in my opinion, against the bigger physical teams. And yeah, just as Nick touched upon, the aimless balls forward to Goodwillie. You could see him getting frustrated, and quite rightly so. For me, there didn't seem to be any sort of game plan in the first half. It was just Dumbarton were all over us, and we've got to remember that that's a Dumbarton team without three key players. Yeah,
they were missing a couple of attacking options at least. Probably, thankfully, given the first half performance, where if they'd maybe had another couple of attacking options, we could have been under a bit more pressure, which we were probably inviting onto ourselves more often than not. The second half, a couple of changes saw us improve without being brilliant. I think we were okay the second half. Again, the goalkeeper had a couple of saves to make. He fumbled quite a few, but it just never really clicked. We got into the final third, but nothing really just came to be. Goody had one decent chance, slipped narrowly wide, but I'm hard pushed to say we deserved a point. Gents, I don't know about you.
Nah, it would have been nice to snatch one, but I think the right team won on the night. I don't think we put enough into the game. The shining light for me in the second half was when Sigurdsson, Norway, came on. I don't think I've seen as many nutmegs in a game so quickly in my life. So that's the positive I'm taking from that. I think Norway should be starting from here on out. He seems to have the beating of his man this season, and he looked strong. He had a shot, just went narrowly wide, and he seemed to be a real positive outlet for us. Don't know what you think about that, Nick.
No, I agree completely. I think Norway was our best player last night. I feel like he was up against Katongo a few times, and I thought Katongo had a fantastic game. But Norway was one of our only players that gave their back line anything to worry about.
Yeah.
I thought he was fantastic. I've sang Norway's praises before. But other than Norway, it was quite a worrying performance. There was one of my big issues was that from throw-ins, we seemed static. There didn't seem to be a lot of movement. So yeah, I'm just reiterating the same frustrations. But it was a flat performance. But yeah, I agree. Norway was good when he came on.
Yeah, I think another player kind of shone out for me. No surprise to those who know me. Scott Rumsby, when he came on, I thought that's the type of player we needed in those sorts of games. He showed aggression. He won his headers when he came in, and I think that was the right call for Danny to make. Jamie Bain was on a yellow. You know, he kind of almost gave away a penalty.
Personally, I thought we dodged the bullet with that. That certainly messaged you boys last night and think, well, I think that was a penalty kick. And
I'll always say I thought he'd get the ball, but
yeah, I mean, if it had been the other end, we would have been absolutely livid. But that's football. Yeah, it's football. So looking ahead, obviously there's not much we can take from those two games positively. It doesn't get much easier this Saturday against Airdrie, who are probably mirroring ourselves in the sense that they've not had the best of starts. Particularly, they were fancied being I think predominantly full-time team. I think they're maybe hybrid. Yeah. Maybe get some part-time players in there. They sit level with ourselves in 3 points, I believe. Yeah, just came off a defeat to Dumbarton 2-0 at the weekend. Would you be looking at making many changes, Nick, to the starting 11?
I think Norway has to start. I'd honestly pick Halmer if he's fit, and Scott Rumsby. Failing that, I would move Lang into the middle and play Rumsby and McNiff as centre back. I just feel that we've got a lot of we got a wealth of talent in the middle of the park, but we need just to consolidate a wee bit. As you were saying, the defence was a bit exposed at times. There needs to be something in front of that. So that's the only changes I would really make. Actually, I'm fully confident in the team going into Saturday, and I'm fully confident in the management. It's one of the first times in a long time we can trust in the players and trust the management. As the results have been very poor, that only strikes my opinion that we'll bounce back from it.
Yeah, there are, I would say, similarities to this point last year. The 3 games into last season, we were struggling early doors. We had a pretty heavy defeat away to Wraith. It never really got going. We had a heavy defeat away to Airdrie. Hopefully we're not saying that this time next week. And it took up until Falkirk at home that seemed to just kind of start pointing us in the right direction. And I think that's the type of result we need, and preferably starting on Saturday away to Airdrie. It will be a difficult game. Their fans will be expecting a reaction, and I certainly think that we are expecting a reaction too. And I would be very surprised if Danny isn't driving that home to them. What are you thinking, Boise?
I think, as you've mentioned, we have similarities from last season. The last result against Airdrie was quite a positive one, albeit at home. It's one of these kind of quote better teams that we seemed to do really well against last season. Airdrie will be wanting to play the ball on the deck as well. And I feel like when we come up against teams that do want to play similar styles to ourselves, we normally come out on top. So for me, I think it's a positive that we've got this fixture coming up, because I think we'll give a good showing of ourselves. I think we've got to have a reaction after those 2 defeats this week. And I firmly believe in Danny and Alan to, do the right things and get the players up for it. I mean, what better way to get up for it than a local derby?
Yeah, yep, just a short journey along the, I don't know what the road is, I'm not going to pretend, just up the road. Yeah, and following that, we've then got League Cup duty at home to Kilmarnock. I mean, I don't want to say it's a throwaway match. It's a match we are heavily underdogs for it. Not sure how serious Kilmarnock will take the competition. They've missed a couple of matches, obviously. I think they had issues with COVID, players missing, etc. So they might be looking to get players up to match sharpness. Do we see us pushing them, or do we just maybe take it for more game time, work on a few things ahead of the following league match?
A game against SPL opposition, we'll probably win it, won't we?
I'm going to put it past us. I mean, yeah, we went from talking about getting beat comfortably by Peterhead to could we beat Kelly?
Yeah, the life of a Clyde fan.
Yeah, it's not easy. I mean, it's never easy, is it?
No, I think it's one of these kind of marquee games in a season where you maybe don't expect much out of it. It's always nice to test yourself against a top league outfit. I remember we played Kilmarnock a few years ago away from home, and
yeah,
you know, it was a very good game. I think it was high scoring. Very disappointed in the Kelly Pies, but that's another story. I'm looking forward to seeing us play them, and hopefully we can come away with something. But the league's got to be priority, so not going to be too disappointed if we don't get anything.
Obviously, our last guest was Danny, and he touched upon the League Cup match with Falkirk where he made changes with view to the league campaign. The match following Kilmarnock is another League Cup game, I think, away to Dunfermline. I think that coincides with the international break, where Scotland hopefully might actually make a tournament for a change. Kilmarnock, are you putting any kind of emphasis on it yourself, Nick, or are you quite happy to see what happens and not let it get us down?
I've got mixed feelings about it. On one hand, I'm really anxious about players picking up injuries and stuff like that, and a tournament that in reality we're not going to win. I think that there is a chance if we can get anything against Kilmarnock. We've then got Dunfermline in what I think is their last game. They're top of the group, so they might take the foot off the pedal a bit. So, yeah, I don't really know whether or not I want us to go for it or not. You know,
Nick's awfully positive here. I think he's taking your mantle away from you here, Boise.
Oh, really?
I think we've got a new prince of positivity.
Well, here's one for you. I think if we show a good performance against Kilmarnock and maybe get something, that's the momentum we might need to kickstart our season.
Could very well be.
You spoke about momentum earlier, so
yeah, could very well be. Anything else we want to cover ahead of the Airdrie Kelly match, or we can wrap up part 1 and we shall start getting ready for part 2, where we will have Clyde number 1 David Mitchell joining us. He has hopefully received your questions to the Clyde FC Podcast Twitter account using the hashtag AskMitch. Hopefully we shall have more guests for you in the future next week. And yes, you heard right, week. We are moving weekly, as there's been, I wouldn't say popular demand, some demand for it to go weekly. So we're going to try it, and then if you're fed up hearing our voices, we'll maybe push it back to fortnightly, but we'll see. Next week we're going to try something different, so watch out for the Clyde FC Podcast tweets. We'll maybe have a wee poll, let you vote on what's coming on next week's show. So we'll wrap up here for part 1, and when we come back we'll have David Mitchell on the line to answer your questions. Speak soon.
That's the team that plays in Cumbernauld. It's got the class to beat them all. They play with passion, they play with pride. Talking about the bully we play. And sing your hearts out for the bully. And sing your hearts out.
Hello and welcome back to part 2 of the Clyde FC podcast, and I am delighted to say that we have Clyde number 1 David Mitchell on the line. David, how are you?
All good. How are you?
Yeah, not too.
Right?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. We've just been obviously discussing about the last rounds of fixtures. Obviously not as positive as the opening day. How did you feel the last 2 games have went? Out with the obvious.
It's very frustrating and disappointing because it's more or less kind of the same pattern as last year, whereas we would perform well against the teams that are so-called favourites and up the top of the table, and then teams that are always tipped to be kind of down the bottom end, teams that I feel we should be beating. We struggle against. I don't know what it is about Peterhead, but it's a team we always seem to really struggle against. And again last night, just the disappointment. I think it was more the first half. Just really disappointing. I thought the second half we had that a wee bit more kind of fire in our belly, and you could see we had a wee bit more desire about us. Which is disappointing considering the group of boys that we've got. But like you said, I mean, to start off so well against Thistle and then to put in the 2 performances that we have done is just, I think everybody's proper disappointed with it.
Yeah, that's pretty much echoing what myself and the boys have been covering, and it's kind of all the general feedback I think fans that were given in the performance last night. It kind of shocked us, I think, because of the bar was set so high against Thistle. It was such a controlled, and it was a pretty great performance all in. Peterhead was, I think Boyce said earlier, it pretty much mirrored the weather. It was pretty torrid. So yeah, moving on. Try and draw a line under it as best we can. We're looking obviously ahead to Airdrie, another tough one. How are the boys feeling after the game? Are they looking to kind of put things right?
We're gutted, but at the same time you've got to move on and look to the next game. You can't dwell on the last game, the last 2 games, even if you do perform well. It's that kind of league where anybody can beat anybody, and I know fine well that going to Airdrie is never easy. Again, another kind of physical team that are just relentless for 90 minutes. I mean, but again, we've got a squad of boys that we should be able to go there and put in a performance and get a result that we need. So, no, listen, everybody is disappointed, but with the group of boys we've got and everybody's attitude's spot on. We all want to put it right and try and get that consistency. That even last season we missed that massively. I think that's what kind of let us down in the end, was we weren't consistent enough. So no, I think the boys we're really looking forward to Saturday to kind of just try and put things right.
No, that's very reassuring to hear, I think, for all the Clyde fans listening. Speaking of your teammates, we're going to have a wee bit of an icebreaker, shall we say, before I hand you over to Nick and Boyce to give you the fan submitted questions. We're going to do a wee round of teammates, and you're going to throw them under the bus. So this is, I hope the Soccer AM lawyers aren't listening, it's a blatant rip-off of what they've done on their TV show, but we'll go with it. So it's just going to be quick fire. Give me a name. You don't need to give me any reasons why. You can if you really want to.
I think you definitely should.
Should we? Right, we'll press you at the end if there's one in particular that takes our fancy. So first up, best trainer.
Best trainer, I will say Scotty Rumsey.
Love that answer.
What? The big man.
The big man, right? Boys say he's going to get a Rumsby tattoo, I think, one day.
Could be soon.
Could be this Monday. Worst trainer?
That's a probably answer that, to be fair.
Pass.
really struggled because all the boys are on the ball and training.
See, that's we'll let you away with that. We'll let you away with that because that's good to hear as a Clyde fan.
I'm fed up getting smashed. I don't want to give them any excuses.
Most skillful?
Big Christoph.
Quickest player at the club?
Jay Henderson.
Yeah, pretty rapid.
Frightening.
Slowest?
Absolutely frightening. Slowest? Jesus.
You can say who you want because they won't be able to catch you.
Yeah, well, I don't know, I'm getting old now. I'll say Big Scotty Rumsey again.
You're falling out the voice in it.
Pay them a compliment, so you can't be too much.
Biggest moaner in the dressing room?
Myself.
Yeah, alright, okay.
Easily.
I think you're allowed to, you're a keeper.
I'm just the open crab as well.
The next one should be interesting. Most intelligent?
I'd say Ross Clineham.
Interesting. Least intelligent? Who's the dafty? Monty. Again, I don't think that will come as great surprise to most Clyde fans that spoke to him.
Sorry, wee man.
Right. Worst taste in music?
It's a hard one because Lovey dominates the music, so everybody's always pretty happy with Lovey's tunes, so I can't really.
No.
I can't really answer that one because I only ever hear Lovey's. He's a DJ of the team, so.
I think if you're anywhere near that dressing room in the stadium, everyone hears that music.
The big boombox, we were told to get a wee one when the big one broke, but we just got an even bigger one. So they go down too well.
So this is probably an easy one then. The best taste in music, I'm assuming, is Lovey.
I'll say myself. Nobody hears my music, but I've got a great taste in music.
Right. Best dress sense at the club? Who's got the best clobber?
Again, it's hard because we're turning up to training. The current groups, we're turning up to training our training gear and then leaving our training gear.
Yeah,
so
true.
I'd probably just go with Big Tom Lang. He's a big suave guy, isn't he? So
Yeah.
he likes himself a bit, doesn't he?
Or as Boyce calls him, Big Handsome. Big Handsome.
So we'll go with the big man. Say him.
Worst dress sense? Who wouldn't you be seen dead with on a night out?
To be fair, the boys, their gear's decent. I'm going to pick one person, but it's just because they've come out with it. It was the strangest statement I've ever heard. It was Mark Lamont, and it's purely because I remember asking him, I think it was, we're going to Ireland, and I says, will you be wearing shoes? And he sat the night, he says, no, I'm too young for shoes. What? I couldn't get that into my head, but
too young for shoes?
I'm going to say wee Monty, I get that. Sorry, wee man, but I don't understand that.
We'll need to get him on.
A wee pair of brogues or something.
I think we are pushing maybe to get wee Mark Lamont on as our next squad member. I think it should be a pretty interesting conversation.
He'll agree with the biggest moaner, that'll be me, so he'll get me back.
And last but not least, who's the Joker? Who fancies himself? Is it again? Probably. I think that. So around you go, David.
But I would say Lovey's probably the one, the biggest Joker. I'm funny, but obviously I travel. Well, I don't travel in the now because of the COVID stuff, but he's part of the Usher gang, so hilarious. But to be fair, there's a few funny boys in the team, so I think anybody could have took that one.
Well, that's the last of the teammates. Thank you very much for your honest assessment of your teammates. No, it's fine. As I say, people will get you back, Mitch. People will get you back.
Don't blame them.
Just before I hand you over to Boyce and Nick, it was just something you brought up there, obviously, about the current protocols with COVID. How is that working? So I'm assuming you said you have to turn up in your gear, and then you need to leave in your gear, essentially. So is that a bit of a pain, to say the least? Is it you're doing your own kit cleaning duties, or?
It's not that, because that doesn't bother me, but it's frustrating because I mean, we're turning up and we're having to, sit in a stand, and it's coming into December. It's coming into just starting November, so it's freezing cold, and we're sitting in a stand having to wait to start training. And then if it's raining, you're ending up soaking and having to just go into your car. And I'm travelling to Ayrshire, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
After working all day, straight to I go to the gym and then go to training. And then for there to sit in a car soaking wet, it's hard going. But listen, I think we're very lucky that we're playing football at the moment, considering when you hear about other stories, like obviously amateur teams and stuff like that. These boys still want to play football the same way we do, so you can't get too frustrated and too picky. So listen, it is what it is, and it's what we need to do now. So needs must, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm assuming Saturday in particular wouldn't have been a pleasant journey home after being drenched for 90 minutes.
Aye, and then obviously we get beat, and it was a poor performance, and then obviously I've home as well, my tyre blew out, so just totally, it was a Saturday to forget for me, but I got home in one piece. Dinner was a bit late and cold, but my missus Lynette she wasn't too fussed. She was quite happy that I was safe.
Right, that's all from me just now, David. I'm going to pass you over to Nick, who's got first couple of fan submitted questions. Over to you, Nick.
No worries.
Alright, David, how you doing?
Not bad. How are you getting on?
I'm not bad. I just got a few questions. The first one has been asked by a few fans. It's just in relation to the new deal that you signed at the start of the year. I was just wondering what influenced the decision to pledge a year to the Clyde.
Well, the first thing that popped into my head was obviously the manager was Daniel Lennon. After what happened to me at Falkirk, the way I was treated, I had a real problem. I don't know, it was a kind of trust issue with managers. It did really get to me the way I was treated, and as soon as I spoke to the gaffer, I felt wanted. I felt, that it was. It's hard to explain, but just his man management, the way he treated me was a big thing for me. And obviously, we've got Chris Schmeichel, the goalie coach, who's been a good friend of mine for a number of years. Working with him, I've worked with him before, so I know how he works. He knows how I work. He knows the demands that I put on myself and him, and he knows how to handle it. Like I said, I'm getting crab at my old age, and he knows how to handle that. And I just felt really comfortable at the club, and obviously all the fans have been great with me, and my family. They also come and watch me every weekend, and they're just made to feel welcome. And that's a big thing for me. It's just how you're treated at a football club, because it's so easy these days to just be forgotten about. I had 2 years at Dundee where I never played. I played 4 games in 2 years. I just felt like the forgotten man. I also went to Falkirk. I got a really bad injury. I was out for a year. Again, felt like just a number. And then when I did get back to the team, the way I was treated, obviously it didn't work out for me. But no, it just felt right, and the gut feeling I had about the way the club was going, and obviously the management team were a big part of that, my reason, and also the group of boys we've got as well. It's a great group. It's one of the best groups I've worked with, so it was just really a no-brainer. It was just it was an easy decision for me, to be fair.
Excellent. I'm sure I speak for all Clyde fans when I say that we're all delighted to have you here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep,
absolutely,
definitely.
No, I appreciate that. Listen, it's something that I hope all the fans know that I appreciate everything that's done for me. So no, thank you all.
Just on that note as well, what are your ambitions for the future? Like both as like your career and like with Clyde?
My first thing I want to do, I'd love to win something with Clyde. It's something that I've not done in my career so far, is actually win something, and that's 10 years I've been playing now. So if I could win something with Clyde, that would be that'd be massive for me. I was also at the playoff final when the boys get promoted, so to see how much that meant to fans, it would be great to be a part of something like that. And I mean, my long term kind of goals, I've always spoke to Annette about this, and my dad and all my family. I really want to try and make it to I'm 40, to try and keep playing at a good level till I'm 40. So another 10 years like that. So I try and look after myself, I do everything right. So as long as I stay clear of any more kind of serious injuries, then I don't see why that's not possible.
Excellent. Just a couple more light-hearted questions, or lighter questions, sorry. It's for Craig Black, the club photographer. He's asking, what is the best save you've made in a Clyde shirt? And who is the best striker you've played against?
Right, best save in a Clyde shirt. Been quite lucky with a few of them, but I would tough to say maybe the save in the last minute against Falkirk last season, the 1-0 game at home, just because I think at the time we were on a bad run and we were struggling to pick up a win, and we won that game 1-0, and I think we'd won, maybe kind of went on a wee run after that that pushed us at the table a good bit. So it was quite a big save. Maybe not the greatest. It was just one of the ones you kind of go and chuck yourself at and hope for the best. But I think it was more how important it was for the season. Best striker I've played against. I played against Johnny Russell a couple of years ago when I was at Stranraer in the Scottish Cup. He was at Dundee United, and he really impressed me. He was just so sharp. And for a wee guy, he was just incredibly strong as well. But I've been quite lucky. I played against a few. I played against Lee Griffiths when he just first signed for Dundee as well, and you could tell that he was just going to be unbelievable. So there's quite a few. But I was really impressed with Johnny Russell. I'd say he's probably been a bit of the best.
Dynamite, thank you. I'm going to pass you over to John now, but thanks very much, David.
No bother. Cheers.
Hi Mitch, how are we doing?
Not bad, how are you?
Not too bad. First things first, we've been speaking about the last few games, and Tuesday night especially. I think you spoke about consistency earlier. The one thing that we've all been very impressed with is your own consistency. There was a few very good saves in the game last night, so just want to highlight that and say well done.
Cheers.
So one of my things is you love to post a lot of kind of outrageous goalkeeping drills on your Twitter. Just wondering what some of your favourites would be, and just wanted to ask if Chris Fahey's ever asked you to do anything like that.
No, he's never asked me to do any ridiculous ones, because I think he knows that I would probably just tell him 2 words or I would walk off. Some of them are just ridiculous. The one I seen a couple of weeks ago, the boy diving about the beach. It's mind blowing that these guys are getting paid to do this stuff. But no, some of them are funny as well. I've seen one that the boys actually jumped off a pier and catched the ball and fell into the water. I don't know if that's
is that to prepare you for an away match at Peterhead with the wind and the rain? And
I was going to say we could probably set that up at Broadwood Loch for you.
I've done that on Saturday. But no, some of the stuff you see nowadays is, I think most of it's just to get the likes on social media and stuff like that. But goalkeeping's not hard, it's pretty simple, and I like all the kind of basic drills. I don't like getting overcomplicated in the game. That's where Chris Fahey knows that I don't like anything overcomplicated. I like to keep it pretty simple. But no, some of the drills you see are hilarious, and then you get all the comments of people saying how good it looks and how that'll make him amazing and stuff. It's just, wow.
Yeah, I think the one you had mentioned about the boy diving about the beach, I saw a few comments about it saying that the sea would condition them to get back up, and you're just keep it simple. I agree with you there.
Diving on grass or anything and getting up conditions you to get back up. Yeah. So I thought, you're not going to dive into the beach on a Saturday, so.
No, maybe not. So one of the things I was excited to have you on about was to talk about a particular save you had made. The save at Arbroath. Now, that was a game away to a championship team who were in good form in the Challenge Cup, and you pulled off an absolute worldie in the last minute. So I was just wondering what you remember about it, and do you remember a voice from the crowd screaming, "Oh no, my coupon," because you bust my coupon that day, Mitch.
Sorry.
Oh, don't apologise. No, he bet against his own team to concede, Mitch. If anything, it's him that should be apologising. Hey,
it's the only coupon I'll be happy losing. But what do you remember about that save? Because it was a special one.
I just remember. I can remember the ball. It was kind of bouncing about the box. I think it was a big centre half, was it? I remember him kind of lining up to take a volley, but he's kind of mishit it, and I just thought, no, because I was miles out. My position, if you look back, my position's terrible. When he goes to volley it, I just remember like, oh no, I just need to get across the goal. And then I don't know, it's one of the ones you just kind of react, and luckily enough I've got a hand to it. But it's just, you kind of go into it, it's weird, you go into kind of autopilot and you've not got time to think about these things, so it's just kind of instinct almost. But I do remember just thinking, kind of panicking, thinking I'd made a mess of it, but luckily enough I'd kind of got back in time. But I never heard any shout, to be fair. I just remember hearing the whistle and thinking, thank God.
I think it was the last action of the game as well, but no, one of the best ones I've seen live.
Well, I think it'd been blowing a gale as well that day, as usual, up at Arbroath.
Yeah.
Right into my face as well, second half.
Yeah, I think my own personal, God, this the Mitch highlight reel, but I'm loving it. Was I think it was a 3-2 game against Falkirk last year. It was a tip onto the bar from the header from about 6 yards. Because the second the boy get his head on it, I was like, great, that's backs to the wall now, damn it, here we go. And then you somehow managed to get on at the bar and away. It was just fantastic. I've only got one wee question for you, Mitch. Was it, again, just more about kind of who kind of were your goalkeeping idols, or who still is your goalkeeping idol? Who was the kind of one guy you wanted to be as a wee goalie growing up?
Growing up, when I was a wee boy, it was Peter Schmeichel. He was, I absolutely loved the guy. I had a video, a tape, and I used to watch it before every single game I played when I was a wee boy. It was just unbelievable. That was what proper made me want to be a goalie, was him. It's kind of changed through the years. Obviously he retired, and I was a massive fan of Casillas. He's a lot of similarities. He's not the biggest, and I'm certainly not the biggest either, so I can relate a lot to him. Obviously he's retired now, so now I look at boys, the way the gaffer likes to play. I kind of look at the boy at Man City. I really like him, Ederson.
Yep.
He's just I don't know, he's just a one-off with the way he passes a ball. I really like the Ajax goalie as well, isn't he? He's kind of similar that way. Obviously you've still got Buffon, who's kind of still there.
He just never stops, does he?
He's always just been unbelievable as well. So I've got quite a few. Listen, there's not many goalies I don't like. I'm a big fan of the I'm a big believer in the goalies union, so
yeah.
Everybody hates us, so I think we all need to stay together. No, there's plenty of goalies there that I like. I think goalies are pretty lucky these days that there's that many young goalies especially can look up to.
Oh, thank you very much. Just before we finish then, have you got just a kind of quick message for the Clyde fans just ahead of the kind of weekends, games and going forward this season?
No, listen, I know for a fact they'll do it anyway, but just to stick with us. Also, I think at home especially we're missing the fans. We miss them pushing us on. Because they do. They never shut up for 90 minutes, and that's hard to come by. I think at our level, at League One level, anywhere else you go, it's very quiet a stadium, apart from the others. And I know obviously before we played Party to Gaffer, he'd read out an email that the Glasgow branch had sent in, and that did give us all a great boost. So, no, listen, can just. Obviously, I know the Clyde fans will stick with us. We are working our hardest to try and get this right. And obviously, we've got the best management team there that's going to push us on. So, no, we'll get there.
Brilliant, thank you very much, David. Boys, anything else just before we wrap up?
I'm alright.
Yeah, I'd like to end this on a positive note.
Positivity after all.
1 point off the playoffs. We can do it.
There you go. That's how tight the league is. There you go.
Exactly, and it's still early doors. David, thank you very much for your time. Very much appreciated. Do you want to throw a teammate under the bus who we're going to get on next? Is it Monty? Get me stick up for yourself. He's taking a bit of beating.
Him or Ali Love, you'll get a good laugh at Lovey.
Need to prepare the studio for Lovey, I think.
We need to get the editor quick on that one, I think.
One of the two, you'll get a good laugh at the both of them.
Right, they're on the target list then.
On the hit list.
Thank you very much, David.
Thanks for having us.
Nick, John, thanks again for your time and your opinions. We'll wrap it up there, and as I said earlier, we're going to weekly. See how that goes. If you get fed up with our voices, let us know. In the meantime, look out for a wee poll coming out on the Clyde FC Podcast, and that's at Clyde FC Podcast on Twitter. And until then, we shall speak to you next time. Come on, the Clyde.
On the bully wee.